Hi. I've been looking at the agreement between the EU and the now fully independent UK, uh, and there are a few things that I think I'm able to bring to your attention now. Now, there's a number of parts to this document, and it is, as everyone has come to learn, a very lengthy document of over 1,200 pages. And so it's quite a lot to go through, and a lot of it is in the legalese that you would expect of an agreement of this type. So getting through that has been a little bit of hard work, and I've concentrated on part two and two particular parts of part two, which they call titles. Title 10 and Title 11, dealing with regulatory requirements and level playing fields respectively. Now, of course, in these areas, we're looking at all sorts of trade agreements concerning fishery, transport, all sorts of things. And that's not what is in my realm of expertise to discuss in any way, shape or form. What are we looking at, as far as I'm concerned, are the issues that affect employment. Now, there are three parts within this title, within these titles, that cover the employment areas. One dealing with labour relations, one dealing with occupational health and safety, and one which is not directly concerning employment but does have an impact, which is on diversity. Now, the way that this document is worded, as I said, is full of legalese, and you're going to plough through it. But it begins by saying that each of the parties being the EU and the UK government, each of the parties have the right to make changes to the regulatory framework and regulations therein at will. That could sound quite ominous, but it's also qualified as you go through this by them saying that the whole thing is about striving to maintain high standards. It's about, there's all sorts of implications or statements about each regulatory change of any substance would have to be consulted upon. The other parties would have to be made aware of the intent of those regulatory changes a year in advance. So if we want to make changes in the UK in 2022, then at some point in 2021, our former partners in the EU need to be made aware. There's all sorts of stuff on consultation, public consultation, and there's stuff on impact assessments that have to be done. Now, that's quite a lot of, there's quite a lot of obligations contained within that kind of statement, or those kind of statements. And it all boils down to whether or not each party trusts each other, which of course they implicitly do by signing such an agreement, but also whether we trust our own government in this. Now, in each of the areas that I've mentioned, we have a plethora of law around employee relations that have been passed over the past 30 or so years. Since I started in work in the 1970s, we introduced legislation on health and safety, which is still in place. It's been added to, but it's still in place. Employee relations, which has been added to, changed, and all sorts of things over the years, and we've discussed these things in other videos. All sorts of things around trade union recognition and regulation in the workplace. All of these things are kind of covered at the moment in UK employment law and legislation, civil legislation like the Equalities Act, which definitely impacts upon employment. So we've got stuff in place, can't be changed immediately. Even the UK legislation, which was introduced during our membership of the EU without anyone saying that we can't do that, all of those pieces of legislation are still going to be in place. They're not going to change overnight. So it all boils down to trust in the long term, and it all boils down to us as employers complying with legislation as the baseline. If we want to be good employers, if we want to be the go-to employers, then we must be better than that. And all these videos and my books are directed towards ethical human resource management and employee relations. So that's what I believe, that the majority of us that are in the world of work and management and business, that we want to have the best that we possibly can in terms of employees, and we want to be able to run our businesses in an ethical way, and management and labour and union and all those other practices are ethical, above board and transparent. So even if the UK government decides to go for deregulation of all sorts of things, we do not have to lower our standards. Now, let's come to another part of this, which we discussed briefly in the last video, which was about employing people from the EU as of today, January the 1st. It's all change. We discussed in the previous video the issue of settled status and pre-settled status, and anyone who has been in the UK up to yesterday, December the 31st, and they came from Europe, then they are entitled to apply for settled status, which requires 5 years residency in the UK of 6 months of every year of those 5 years. All sorts of different bits and bobs would impact on that. They're making that if someone was away on national service in the armed forces in their country for a year, that still counts as a year's residency. So there are all sorts of things about that, but we discussed that, and people have up until June the 30th to apply for settled status. If they get pre-settled status, then their pre-settled status lasts until the 5 years is completed of residency in the UK, and they are entitled to live and work and access all sorts of benefits such as the national health and so on whilst they're here. But as far as we're concerned as employers, you are not at risk of any action against you for employing illegal workers if they have residency, if they have settled or pre-settled status. Now, we come to employing people as of now, that come in as of today, the 1st of January. Now, here it's something different. I mentioned yesterday that you would need to obtain a sponsorship license if you want to employ someone. Now, there is a cost to that, and it's in the region of £1,500 for a larger organisation, and it's £536 for a small business or charity. Now, this means that to obtain that license, there is that fee that needs to be paid. And you have to have a job that is a genuine job, and the people that are going to come have to be skilled. Now, there are a number of categories for visas, which include all sorts of things like an investor, but they need to invest £2 million. And the ones that we're concerned with really are the skilled workers for entry into the UK and employment in the UK. Now, a skilled worker is classed as someone at level 3. So you've got things like MVQ level 3, you've got A levels. They are the level 3 type qualifications. So that is the skills level. Now we've got a point system that we're going to work on here. And there's a number of points that need to be obtained. There's got to be 70 points obtained in order to employ someone. Now remember, first of all, we're going to that level 3 skill. You can't, it's not just any skill, it's not just any occupation, level 3 skill. So the point system is based on 20 points for the sponsorship. So you're sponsored, you're a sponsor, and you've got 20 points immediately. 20 points for the skilled level. Now that is mandatory, and as I said, that's A level or level 3, MVQ level 3. that kind of level of skill is required for entry. Then you've got 10 points for English language. These are mandatory, so sponsorship 20, skill level 20, English language 10. They've got to have a competency in English language, got to be able to speak English to level of something like GCSE. So there you got your first 50 points. The next 20 points are based on salary. Now the basic salary that is required, the starting rate is £25,600. But that has a degree of flexibility to it, in that you can employ someone on less than that, but the skills level has to match, and you can employ someone in areas where we have a deficit in terms of employment. So areas where it's difficult to fill a vacancy, then that becomes an exemption. So the salary level can be less, but the skills level remains the same. So 50 mandatory points, 20 where there's a degree of latitude in terms of skills and pay. Now, all this information can be found. If you want more details, please get in touch and I will provide you more details on those things. If you've got any particular problems that can be answered in an email, then I'm happy to do that for zero fee. Now, what I want to do at the end of this video is simply promote my book, Human Resource Management Made Easy, my second book, Handling Discipline and Grievance in the Workplace, and ask that you subscribe to my YouTube page and like and share HR Made Easy, Human Resource Management Made Easy Facebook page. Meanwhile, hopefully we'll have a prosperous new year, and let's look forward to the end of COVID with the vaccinations. But for the time being, I know that we're all going through a difficult time. Biggest part of the country is in tier 4, which is virtually a lockdown. So I know it's difficult, but nonetheless, a happy new year to everyone. Let's hope that it's a much better year than 2020. Cheers. Bye bye.